Okay, welcome back. My name is Bob Bianchi. I'll be with you at 3 o'clock. Like I said, we got a lot on the plate. Hey, guys, you know that I have been fascinated about the Jonchuck trial. And if you were following it, this was the insanity defense case. He literally tossed to her death his child, his baby, over a bridge. And it was actually witnessed by the police. There's that little angel right there. And there's the father, the person that was there that was supposed to protect her from harm, from others. But no, he, in fact, did a horrible thing and killed his girl. The question was, is this going to be a good insanity case? And there was a lot of evidence on both sides of the equation. It was hard fought, hard litigated. In the end, Jonchuck was found guilty. The jury did not buy the insanity verdict. I've been covering this a lot with my boy Gene Rossi. Let's take a look at the highlights of this particular case, and we'll be back on the other end.
Defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree as charged.
Jurors returned a guilty verdict for Jonchuck, the Florida man who threw his 5-year-old daughter over a Tampa Bay bridge. Jurors deliberated for more than 11 hours. Ultimately, they said Jonchuck was not insane when he killed his daughter, Phoebe. The prosecution and defense presented their closing arguments Monday after more than 3 weeks of trial. The case saw dozens of witnesses, including several mental health experts. Each side dueled over whether Jonchuck fit the legal definition of insanity, that he did not know the consequences of his action or didn't know what he was doing was wrong when he killed his daughter.
It doesn't make rational sense now. It will never make rational sense. It is insanity.
Prosecutors focused on Jonchuck running from the scene after he threw her off the bridge.
Why would he be fleeing? Because he knows that what he did was wrong. It's consciousness of guilt. And if he knows what he did was wrong, then he is not insane.
And that Jonchuck's alleged delusions did not fit his actual actions.
But if the delusion is that both he and Phoebe both have to die to save the world, he didn't follow the delusion. Because last time I checked, he's still alive. He's sitting right over there in the purple shirt.
The defense countered with Jonchuck's bizarre behavior after he was arrested to argue he didn't understand what he had done.
Certainly, somebody who realizes that they've just killed their daughter and that that is wrong is not asking to go to the airport. Doesn't make sense that they're asking to go to Babylon.
The judge sentenced Jonchuck to life in prison immediately following the guilty verdict. His attorneys expressed their concern for Jonchuck to local media after the verdict. For the Law&Crime Network, I'm Rachel Stockman.
All right, Rachel, thanks so much for the great recap. Parting is such sweet sorrow, a great author Shakespeare once wrote. And it is going to be that way for me today with Josh Solomon from the Tampa Bay Times. Josh has been covering this case. He knows all things Jonchuck. Josh, I want to thank you in advance for all the work you've done for the Law&Crime Network, and in particular with me. How you doing today, Josh?
I'm well. Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Sure. So listen, I got a couple questions for you. Give me the feel, the temperature of what was happening before the jury returned its verdict. What were you watching? Were the lawyers pacing? Were they biting their nails? Were they collegial with one another because they got hot at various? Give me the whole scene.
Yeah, so, we had lawyers and journalists were all over the courthouse for hours. The jury deliberated almost 7 hours, starting on Monday and into Tuesday. And so basically everyone was just sort of waiting for the call. In fact, we were in the cafeteria, saw some of the lawyers, and, I asked them what their day was like. They said, same as yours, it's just a waiting game. But when we finally got the call, we saw some activity in the courtroom. We went upstairs, and it's sort of just like, okay, are we here for a question? Are we here for a verdict? Are we here because the jury says they're hung? And if a verdict, what's it going to be? And I don't have any skin in the game, but I was nervous. I was anxious. The lawyers were visibly anxious. Everyone was quiet. Everyone was sort of just walking around. Then the judge came in. We have a verdict, and it was pretty quick after that.
Yeah, Josh, listen, I can tell you personally, for a person who's done it for many years and still does, to me, the opening statements and the jury having a verdict and waiting to hear what it is are the two most nerve-wracking things for at least me as a trial attorney. I'm told, though, listen, the jury in pretty quick measure rejected the insanity defense. That was not shocking or surprising to me. The defense did a very good job at exploiting what they could with regard to this. But afterwards, I'm told that you had an opportunity to talk to the defense team, and I'm wondering, can you tell us about that? And in particular, I forget the female attorney's name, the one who said she wanted to swat the prosecutor down and was very vocal. I loved her style. Did you get to talk to her and her thoughts?
Yeah, so her name is Jessica Manuel. She was Jonchuck's lead counsel. I didn't get to talk with her after the verdict to sort of and she just kept walking. I think that this weighed heavily on the defense team. Everybody exchanged hugs. I did manage to talk to sort of the fourth counsel on the defense team. He's a former public defender turned private attorney who was actually hired to consult on this case. And he gave me a very brief statement. He said that after the verdict, Jonchuck turned to Jessica Manuel and co-counsel Jane McNeil and actually gave them hugs, told them to be strong for themselves, told them everything was okay, effectively comforting them. I think it was pretty clear that the defense really put their heart and soul into this case, and it was I believe it was a devastating loss for them.
Yeah, listen, people find it very hard to understand. I call it the mystery of fate, that you could be a vociferous advocate as a prosecutor, and then you can go on to the other side as a defense lawyer and feel the same way in terms of what it is that you're doing. I had the luxury of being a young assistant prosecutor, being a defense attorney, and then becoming the head prosecutor, and I felt that defense, the 12 years I did defense work before I became the head prosecutor, was invaluable to me, not only in assessment of cases, but knowing how the defense thinks in terms of being able to attack their arguments. So they do put their heart and soul, and it was clear these lawyers did too. Hey, Josh, our great Kathy Russin, who is always on top of all these cases, and again, the team here at the Law&Crime Network that's always feeding us data, sometimes through these earpieces, tells me you also had an opportunity to talk, if this is true, amazingly, to Jonchuck's mother. Is that accurate? And if so, what did we learn?
Yeah, so I personally didn't talk to Jonchuck's mother, but my colleague, Lane DeGregory, did. Lane has been covering this story since it happened and wrote a really incredible piece like 3.5 years ago on Phoebe's life and on Jonchuck's life. And she has made, because she's an excellent reporter, has made inroads with the Jonchuck family. And so after the verdict, she got on the phone with Jonchuck's mom and she sounds really conflicted. She said both that she loves her son, but if he really did do this and wasn't insane, then he deserves to rot in hell. She's in a tough spot. She lost her grandchild to her son, what's a mother and a grandmother to do? I think she feels very conflicted about all of this.
So, Josh, listen, I always said in the murder cases that I tried, it blows up. In fact, I just recently got done handling one on the defense side. It blows up two families. There's so much carnage that happens that people don't really look at because they're only looking at the players that are in the courtroom at the counsel table. But families on both sides suffer tremendous loss here. Tell me a little bit about the community and the community's reaction to this in general. They watched this with great acuity. They were very interested. Are they satisfied with the result?
First of all, one of the most interesting thing about this case, or one of them, is that there aren't two families at play here. All of the destruction is really contained into one tragic family here, and so that was the reason why I think we didn't see anybody in the courtroom for Phoebe. We also didn't see anyone in the courtroom for Jonchuck. I think that the family just doesn't. I can't even put myself in their shoes. I don't know how they compute all this. But for that reason, there were no advocates of Phoebe there. There was nobody, on Jonchuck's side. The comments that we've been getting in the stories, a lot of them are saying that he got what he deserved. I think some of there have been comments though about how he's obviously mentally ill and would be better off getting help. People read these stories and bring their own personal feelings and their own experiences to them. And I think there are people who were satisfied with the verdict. I think there are people who see the verdict perhaps as a system that, isn't going to provide any help for John. see it all kinds of ways.
Well, Josh, you know, I like to say, and what I love about the Law and Crime Network is we have guys like Gene Rossi, our hosts, our guests, are real seasoned trial people. We don't just opine about the law as we believe it should be from a textbook. We've lived it, breathed it, smelled it, tasted it, touched it. It is very, very difficult in a case like this, even with all the psychiatric evidence that was available, to get to that space where a jury will absolve, if you will, by a not guilty by reason of insanity on a legal insanity defense. Very difficult burden for the defense, but I'll say this. They did their job, and they should be proud of that, despite the fact they had a tough road to hoe. Josh Solomon, the only thing I got left to say to you is while I wish you no crime in your community, but if there is and we cover it, I hope you're on it because you've been awesome.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. I look forward to the next time.
Okay, Josh. Hey, guys, we got a lot more left here in the Law and Crime Network. I'm going to be here at 3 o'clock. We're going to clean up a little bit, do a little business, get a little more powder. We'll be right back.